Welcome back to another exciting edition of Reconfiguring Reality. I'm your host, the Jericho,
And I'm Laura.
and today we're talking about hypochondria. Hmm, am I coming down with something? I bet it's cancer.
Don't look on WebMD. It will be cancer then. Do you know when I hear hypochondriac, I think of the movie My Girl, where Veda goes on about the chicken bone she has stuck in her throat. She visits the doctor like a couple of times in the movie.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know
That
what I
might.
mean?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So, hypochondria,
What is it?
it's a mental disorder for those who are unaware. Its symptoms include anxiety, which is basically its core symptom that it revolves around. And it's the idea that someone is seriously ill based on normal body sensations. For example, if you have gurgling stomach, right? Lots of us our stomach gurgles, not just when bad things happen, but it just makes noises as it's digesting food. But they will hear these noises and assume the worst. Minor signs, such as if they get a small rash, if they get a headache, if they have dry mouth or sweaty palms, things that can occur for any number of normal reasons throughout the day. These will cause them to spiral emotionally and mentally as they begin to fascinate about what could potentially be wrong about them, ranging from leukemia to cancer to any other number of disorders, even to the outlandish, talking about like West Nile virus or something that they would never encounter, having never left the United States normally, right? Things like that. And it's not just prone to the United States, it's worldwide. So they're often preoccupied about getting sick or being sick. They worry over minor symptoms, body sensations, as we discussed. Being easily alarmed about their health status. If they're told, oh, yeah, we noticed that you gained, you know, an extra 0.5% body fat since last time we were your checkup, they may freak out and think they have a thyroid problem or some other thing that has nothing to react to that about. They usually will be very stubborn and reluctant to accept any sort of medical feedback, even when it's contrary to their fears and in their benefit. They just assume the worst at all times.
But that's not true. That's not always true. Because sometimes hypochondriacs go to the doctors more often.
Right, but they still reject the information. The doctor says you don't have to keep coming back here because you're perfectly healthy, and they book more appointments. They're rejecting the advisory of the doctor. It would be like, and sometimes this illness isn't just a matter of inconvenience or cost, even though they're willing to pay the associated cost. If they're on government assistance benefits, right, that's draining resources that could go to somebody who's genuinely needs the help. Also, taking a bunch of invasive and expensive tests is itself a health risk, especially if they're not needed. Imagine having, 12 mammograms in one year, getting one every month because your brain is screaming at you that you must have breast cancer because you find a benign lump or something in your breast.
Is there a cure?
Well, like with every mental illness, there really isn't a cure so much as there is learning to deal with it and facing one's fear. For some people, hypochondria can have great results in reducing these mental sensations and episodes by facing facts. When they're presented with hard facts about, risk percentages and things like that. But unfortunately, the opposite is also true in that some hypochondriacs will actually get worse the more facts you share with them because then they have hard scientific data to say that yes, there is definitely a 2% chance you could have cancer. And like someone who, wants to go against the grain and ignore public truth and, chase the obscure, hypochondriacs will do the same with their own self-diagnoses. They will look at a 1% as 100% in their minds.
Huh.
And unlike a lot of other mental disorders, though, this isn't necessarily a biological one. Although some people seem to be born, not literally born with it, but even from a young age, they express concerns about the world. Usually, like most mental illnesses that aren't based on some chemical or mutation, it has a lot to do with your belief structure, how you were raised, and your past experiences, right? Like your family may have made you into a hypochondriac without knowing it. Excessive cleaning, washing of hands, sterilization, because, maybe you had doting parents who themselves were hypochondriacs or germaphobes, you know? If you uh, if you suffered a severe illness or a rare illness that, you know, was nearly fatal, the fear that you felt leading up to your almost death may spur you to then overreact to general things for fear of going back to that place, that mindset.
So they of course recommend, because it's a mental disorder, a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Yep.
Um and there are six criteria for what did you call it?
Uh, call what?
Hypochondria?
Yeah, hypochondria. Yeah.
Right. It actually falls under the illness anxiety disorder, is what they call it now. Very uh, interesting name. But there's six criteria, um, which you've covered most of them, I think. Uh, the one, of course, the first one on here is frequent or consistent worrying about being or becoming sick, which we've covered. The second one, having no symptom or only mild symptoms. If you do not have a medical condition and experience illness, anxiety disorder related to it, the worries you experience may seem disproportionate or excessive to others. The third one is you feel a high level of anxiety and are easily alarmed when it comes to your health, which my kid was like that when she was younger. Oh, she was definitely a hypochondriac. Um, you
I think a
frequent,
lot of kids with stress will develop some level of anxiety disorder, not necessarily for their entire life, but I think that's a pretty common factor. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's almost like your brain is sort of transferring one fear to another because one is more manageable, right?
hmm,
Like,
yeah. You frequently do things to check or assess your health, like checking for signs and symptoms of illness, or you frequently avoid medical appointments, hospitals, etc. That is not why I avoid hospitals and such. Just
although I do think you have a little bit of this.
no, I don't think I do.
R- Are you sure about that?
Yeah,
So you have no aversion to taking medicine before
that
fear
has
of a
nothing to do with a fear of.
you have a fear of taking medicine because of an allergic reaction you have to one very specific strain of medicine, and your fear prevents you from taking it even when directed by a doctor.
Okay,
That
first
is,
of all, it's not a fear of taking medicine. I prefer not to take medicine because I know the majority of medicines that I've taken give me an adverse reaction, and I don't like how they make me feel. The fifth criteria is you had these feelings of severe health related worries for at least 6 months. The feelings don't have to be consistently about just one illness during that time. And the last criteria is that there isn't a better condition to explain your symptoms and what you're experiencing.
so, do you know why it's called illness anxiety disorder?
Because you have anxiety over getting ill?
As opposed to hypochondria.
No, why?
So a lot of these name changes that we've seen for various conditions, right? Like non-psychonormative behavior instead of like bipolar, for example. They're generalized terms so that people don't feel targeted and that the negative connotations of the past that are associated with them and with mental health, it's supposed to lessen those.
Huh.
Now, I think that's ridiculous. Call it what it is. Like trying to make people feel better by making it sound less, you know, disorderly and more like it's just like the common cold and it's everybody should be okay with it, whatever. That's not it. These things need to be addressed and have a certain weight associated with them. So I hate when they do this to stuff. There's a reason we labeled things the way we did. There's nothing offensive about naming something, right? That would be like if we could no longer call a coffee mug because somebody finds coffee offensive. So now we have to call them, liquid drinking receptacles. Like it's ludicrous.
They do prescribed anti-anxiety or antidepressant medications.
Yep, pretty standard.
And of course, I said about the psychotherapy, and they also say that cognitive behavioral therapy is another way that you could go.
Yep. I want to say too, just in the vein, but on a side note, therapy has become much more widely accepted now. And for those listeners who are out there, please, if you have any sort of mental problems, and I don't just mean like an actual diagnosed mental disorder, I'm talking about if you're feeling bad, if you're depressed, if you're lost, if you're unsure about your future, just if you need someone to talk to, go seek help. Go find therapy. It's it's like having vitamins. It's like drinking water. It's good for you. You don't have to do it every moment of every single day, but you do need it. Everybody could benefit from helping to sort out some of the more complicated thoughts and feelings that you might be suffering, even if it's only for a short time.
Did you have any fits of hypochondria when you were growing up?
Hmm, let me think. Um, so no. I was not when I was younger. I was quite the opposite. I think this is fairly common with most young people, but I had a sort of sense of invincibility about me. Like I wasn't delusional. I didn't think I could like stop bullets or something. But I sort of had the I'm going to be young forever mentality as a child.
And
Like I
that's never
never,
going to happen to me mentality.
not even,
Diabetes, that'll never happen to me.
it's not even that it won't happen. It's that until it does happen, I have no reason to fear it or to worry about it. Now, that being said, I don't have any medical things. Like wasn't worried about cancer or rashes or moles or scoliosis or any of that stuff. When I would hear this kind of stuff, or I was always more of a curious child. It comes with being me and seeing the world the way I do. Like when I was very young, most kids were watching, cartoons and that kind of stuff. And although I did watch that to some degree, once we got cable, I was watching like the surgery channel. I was watching bodies get cut open because I found it to be fascinating. Like when you see human beings, you associate all these emotions and things behind them, right? But like when you watch someone get cut open or you watch a transplant surgery or whatever, suddenly you're no longer looking at a living person. You're looking at a machine, a biological, set of gears and pumps and all this sort of thing. And it's kind of just weird to think of oneself. It made me stop and like really think about stuff. That being said, although I didn't have like hypochondria about like diseases and illness and all that thing, there was a strong pervading fear of death. And although I encountered death a lot and I wasn't afraid of seeing or watching something die or something like that, I did not like the idea that there was uncertainty, that I could go literally at random, just like a bad roll of the dice, and whoop, there you go. Like I could live a perfect life, exercise every day, eat all the right food, and still die at 30. While someone could be 600 pounds, smoke every day, and live to 99. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it seems random, just so utterly random. And I'm not talking about like, murder and car accidents. I mean, just literally health and everything seemed to almost not play a factor at all. Like it definitely does. The numbers show. I'm just saying, like, it just seemed from my young age that death was looming everywhere. And I would sometimes stay awake at night and I would just stare at the ceiling and try not to fall asleep because I felt like if I fall asleep, I might die in my sleep and never wake up.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, although I understood early on about faith in God and stuff like that, I didn't really have a strong testimony as a child. So, like, I didn't want to die. I didn't know if it would hurt. I didn't know if I'd ever see my family again. Am I just going to fade into nothingness? And that pervading thought would rack my brain. And because my brain was usually focused on 1,000 things a minute, whenever it would hyper focus on something like that, it it bordered on madness is what it felt like because it just was this constant never ending pressure. And it would just come at weird times too, usually like right before I went to bed or something. But like I wouldn't walk down the street afraid to die of something. It would just be like in those quiet moments when your thoughts are just that's all that there's you and your thoughts. That's when this thing would just start like its own echo chamber. So that'd probably be my closest. Now, that being said, as I've gotten older, I think I have like a low level version of this, not because I'm a hypochondriac, but because I feel like we all start to sense our own mortality as we get older. You know, we're not as fast, we don't recover as quickly, we don't heal as quickly. We start seeing our faces and bodies wear out over time, right? And I think that sense of mortality makes me a lot more cautious. Like when I'm driving the car now, I'm actually worried about losing control of the vehicle. Not because I think I'm going to, but that maybe my reaction speed's not going to be fast enough, or maybe I'm not going to be strong enough to turn the wheel, even though it's like power steering or whatever, right? Like just little thoughts like that kind of creep in every now and then. So it makes me drive a little slower, drive a little safer, brake a little sooner. I don't go hopping or climbing things or jumping off things. I don't go doing things that I would have done at a younger age without a second thought. You know what I mean? I think to some level, getting older, I actually feel more aligned with this. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because even the disorder itself generally doesn't go into effect into someone's like midlife. Like when they've reached like I think it's like their 30s. Trying to find my notes. Give me a second here. I don't know where I had it here, but um,
Where did you find your notes at? Is it on a specific website?
I took it from a couple. I like the Mayo Clinic when we talk a lot about the medical stuff. I get
Hmm.
a lot of my stuff from there for those who are interested. Um,
I got mine from the Cleveland Clinic.
the Cleveland Clinic is another good one. Um, and we live in kind of like the Midwest, and there's a huge like medical field here. Like there's so many states that have like the leading cancer research center, the leading children's disease center, that kind of stuff. And they're all over the place. So it's interesting to kind of be surrounded like that because I never really thought of it that way.
So, did you know that? I know you're looking for more notes.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. I'm just going back
Did you
through here. You're
know
fine.
that studies show that the out the onset um of the illness anxiety disorder is around 23 to 29 years old?
Yeah, that's all I was looking for.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I said. It's kind of that midlife, right? I
Yeah.
mean, 30 is not really in the middle of your life, but at least
Nowadays it is.
on paper, right? You retire at 60, 65. So we kind of think that is the halfway mark, right?
Uh-huh. Yep.
But it kind of makes sense, right? Because when you're in your teens and when you're younger, you really don't think about the ramifications of what you're doing. You're just kind of living life, right? And when you're young, everything feels like it takes an eternity, right?
Yeah.
Like you just can't wait to grow up, right? Like everything is just such a freaking slog. And then like as soon as you hit your 20s, you start to get a taste of adulthood. You start to go out there. You're still trying to have your own thing and do your own thing, but now you're starting to have more responsibilities, right? And you're having your big adventures before you settle down most of the time. And then once you hit your 30s, reality sort of kicks in. stuff starts happening, right? Body parts start wearing out, things sooner than you thought. And I don't mean like all of a sudden you have a bad back. I just mean like you'll start to be like, well, oh man, why can't, I used to be able to like lose 20 pounds in a week. What happened? Why am I having a soreness when I wake up in the morning? Why do I hear cracks and pops when I stand up? Right? Things like that. And so I think that again, sense of mortality really is when the pressure is already building. A lot of people are dealing with like midlife crisis stuff, the pressures of having children, trying to build a home, a career, right? Because that transition between like the 20 and 40 is a rough go for a lot of people. And so I think that you're already under a lot of stress and anxiety, and it just sort of culminates.
Right. I don't think I've ever met anybody that actually has this illness.
So I don't actually know if I've met someone. I think I did once at work, but I honestly can't say 100%. I know that plenty of times in the past, family members have labeled other family members hypochondriacs. Um, the closest person I know of in that my immediate or used to be immediate circle was my Aunt Helen. She was, I don't know whether she was a true hypochondriac or if she was just extremely neurotic, but like we would be driving down the street and everybody's just chilling in the car, whatever, no big deal. And my mom would stop a little too quick for her. And I'm not talking like squeal tires and smoke and skidding or anything. I'm just talking about normal stopping. And she would scream bloody murder and like grab the dashboard like she was just gonna go flying through the window. And it's like, we're doing like 35, calm down. Like she would have weird things about that, or just she'd get really obsessive about various things in her life that became a stress point. But again, I'm not entirely sure if she was that true hypochondriac or not, because again, it usually revolves more around medical stuff. But that was probably the closest I ever like personally witnessed. I've
Yeah, I
seen
don't.
little mini bouts though. Like I said, I've seen people like that freak out about doctor stuff in general or dentist stuff, something to do, with some sort of medical procedure.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't. I don't know that I've known anyone. My mom used to call me one when I was a kid, but yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I just thought about this. You're asking me earlier if I ever had it. So as a child, I was not a hypochondriac. However, I was deathly afraid of the dentist.
You're still not a fan of the dentist as it is.
Oh, well, I'm not a fan of needles, and the dentist comes along with needles. And well, I don't like the dentist in general because I don't like pain. And no matter what, them scraping and poking and water picking and all that, it's just a series of pain no matter how which way you slice it. Whether it's the sharp pings and sounds as they use that water pick flosser thing, the not the normal one, but the one that actually like cleans your teeth.
Uh huh.
When they use that, the high pitch, like my ears are sensitive to that high pitched noise and it hurts. Um, but yeah, needles. I was terrified as a young person of needles because I was traumatized by people. And this is one trauma I will say that I did know about, and it still affects me to this day. And it just gives me a deep-seated distrust of all medical people. Dentists, doctors, doesn't matter. I don't refuse their treatment. I literally go into a doctor's office and I'll start like my heart will just start pumping faster and faster, and I'll get like sweaty and get like adrenaline flowing. Even though I've now, as a diabetic, have been stabbed hundreds of times. Like
Right.
you'd think I'd be used to. I even have to inject myself once a week, and I don't take insulin, but um, despite having gone through all of these needle pokes, I sign up for every you know flu vaccine and uh, you know uh, what else did I got? Like hepatitis, Hep B, Hep A, like all had all these freaking needles jabbed into me. I had three in one arm one day, two in the other. Like I'm so used to getting stabbed, and it's never fun, but still, I cannot help but feeling like just like paranoid and nervous and like it's not even like me mentally that's going through it, even though that is part of it. It's more physical than anything. Like my body is like a shaking chihuahua. Like, and I'm like, we've been through this 100 times, man. Why are you doing this to me? But it's just the trauma of it, man. I had some messed up stuff when I was a kid. Did you ever see those? Did you have the board when you ever went to the dentist? I mean, I know you like the dentist, but did you ever see one of those in the dentist's office? It looks like one of those EMT medical boards almost, but with like Velcro straps.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, this is like a straight up torture device back in California. They would have these boards and they would lay a kid on them and you could fit Velcro straps through all these openings on the bottom of the board. And they would literally like zip tie your ass with these Velcro straps to this board so that way you couldn't move. They'd wrench down your head, your chest, your arms, your legs, your all your joints so that you just if you tried to struggle and fight back, they could still like do dentistry stuff on you without you like flailing around.
Huh.
Yeah, they threatened me with the board when I went to the dentist's office. And then when I went to Kaiser as a young kid, I had to get a TB test,
Uh-huh.
and I was scared, and they decided to be not very friendly with me. And so I dove under a desk and I was kicking and throwing things at people and to get them to leave me alone. And eventually got this sweet old nurse. She was this older black lady. She'd been there for years, and she was very nice and very soothing. And I came out and I gave her my arm and I was going to let her do it. And at this point, the room was filled with doctors and security guards and nurses. And as soon as I handed her my arm, they sort of like shoved her out of the way. And all of these people like jumped me and grabbed my arm and opened their hands just wide enough that the nurse could give me the shot. So imagine that, right? I'm getting tackled by a room full of people and held down. And then this nurse was new. So this was for those who not, have the little small pinprick. There was two ways to do it back in my day. There was the giant thumbtack with the 50 needles, or they did one where they'd stick it in your arm, lift the skin up, and inject this fluid. Well, really, they just needed to inject the fluid. But she lifted my arm, what felt like 6 inches off my arm. It was probably more like a quarter of an inch, but still, it was pretty raised up there. I don't know why the hell she put me on a pig roast, but yeah, traumatized the shit out of me.
Oh, good goodness gracious.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's weird because I didn't like needles. I'm not a huge fan of getting shots, right? But it's fine. I have several tattoos. I can deal with it. The older I get, the less it bothers me. I don't mind the dentist at all. Like, very rarely do I ever complain about the dentist. But I remember being young and having a fear of all of that. All of it.
Yeah, you have become a straight psychopath when it comes to going to the dentist.
I'm a
For those,
psychopath, you say?
yes, 100%. For our listeners out there, they're like, "Why are you being so mean to your wife?" No, 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 no. She goes in and is like, "Yeah, I don't like needles. So instead of getting the 2 seconds of pain it would take to get like a shot or maybe two in their mouth so they could work on her, she's like, let's just not use the Novocaine and just go in bareback with that drill." I'm like, you are out your frippin' mind.
Well, it's because look, I went when I was in Pittsburgh. I had to get my teeth scraped. You know, the plaque and stuff scraped off my teeth, and you know that they go under your gums and it hurts, right?
Yeah, I know.
Most for most people, it hurts. But um, they gave me Novocaine or lidocaine or whatever cane it was, and he had to shoot me up with twice as much, and it wore off within half an hour. So they were still scraping without it being effective anyway. So I'm just like, why even bother?
See, like I said, psychopath. Although that's why I married her because I had the same resistance to drugs and alcohol just on a broader scale. So when I go to the dentist and they shoot me up, they have to like shoot me so many times it's like oozing out of my gums. And I'm like, all right, guys, the timer's on. You got 20 minutes to wrap this up. So there is something about the illness anxiety disorder. that I do find a little bit interesting that I didn't think we talked about much. So, one of the things about hypochondria is we talked about that it's brought on by the past and things like trauma, but this trauma does not have to be medical related.
What, the hypochondriac?
Yeah. So, for example, if some hypochondriacs uh, were simply just abused as children, like they suffered child abuse, whether that was physical abuse or sexual abuse, extreme stress. Um, if you already have prevailing issues, like if you suffer from anxiety or depression, it can manifest into hypochondriac behavior. Even things like rape, or emotional abuse can cause people to become hypochondriacs. And a lot of times, the idea behind it is that when they feel violated, be that physically, mentally, or emotionally, they seek control. So you'd think, well, being a hypochondriac means you're out of control because you can't stop from thinking that you have all these diseases and stuff. But if you think about it, being a hypochondriac at the end of the day is searching for answers. You want to be able to take this mystery illness, this mental boogeyman, and give it a name, put a face to it, right? Because when you start to do that with irrational fears, it helps you fight the demons. Because the scariest thing about the devil is that it's the devil you don't know, not the one that you do. So as morbid as it would be, most hypochondriacs would rather be vilified and be like, thank God, I knew I had cancer. Even though cancer is a terrible thing to have and you wouldn't want to wish that on yourself, it's less scary than whatever the fear that manifested that hypochondriac behavior, because that's way scarier to them.
Okay. I don't know. It says medical, so I don't know.
What's his medical?
The description of the definition.
No, no, they do the definition of it is somebody who focused on medical issues. I'm just saying the what causes hypochondria can be from a non-medical issue. Because essentially at the end of the day, all hypochondria is an irrational fear. It's just more of a broad spectrum of fear of, illness and disease and everything that's sort of medical related, right? But if you think about it, there's plenty of people who suffer the exact same behaviors about um, non-medical things. Like back in the day when, talk shows were really big, did you ever see the ones where they did like uh obscure fears? Not like
Uh-uh.
fear, not as fears of spiders and stuff, like fear of cotton balls, shit like that. Like those ones, like the one I just mentioned, a lady was afraid of cotton balls because she was in a horrible car accident and she was in a full body cast for like a year or more. And the constant pulling out of the cotton balls that they would shove inside the cast and then them putting back in, hearing that squeaky cotton and everything, it just drove her nuts. The feeling of her honor constantly rubbing against her, the stench, all this kind of things, all of it led to this anxiety. So that she developed a fear of cotton balls. She's afraid of little fluffy balls of cotton. Just the sight of them just sends her into fits and terror, right? And that's what I'm talking about, right? Like the trauma is directly related, but the fear makes no sense. Like the cotton ball isn't going to chase her down the street and do anything to her. It's just a cotton ball, right? If she never wanted to touch another one in her life, she can pretty easily avoid them for the most part. So in that same vein, I think that's where hypochondriacs fall into, right?
Right. Guess so, yeah.
So like we said earlier, for all those hypochondriacs who may be listening, seek mental help. if you want to seek physical help because it calms you down or gives you a momentary reprieve, I say go for it if it's worth helping to calm your mental state. But really, you need someone who can help prescribe you medications and talk with you and really work on a plan of attack. You have anything else to add?
No, I don't. So that's going to be it for today's podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow. Come back to see us next time.
Heck yeah. Don't be afraid to come back at another time.
Good night, y'all.
Bye.